Hi, and welcome to The Grief Between Us. My name is Patti Merrill, and if you have found your way here, there's a good chance that grief has touched your life in some way. Maybe through the death of someone you love, maybe through the loss of a relationship, a dream, a version of your life that you thought would unfold differently. However you arrived here, I'm really grateful that you're here and that we can walk this path together, even if it's just for a moment. This podcast was created as a place where grief can be spoken about honestly and listened to with open hearts, not fixed, not rushed, not explained away, just witnessed. For much of my life, I thought that grief was something that we were supposed to move through as quickly as possible, something to overcome, something to tidy up so that we could get back to living. But my own life has taught me something very different. My own life has been shaped by grief in profound ways. My 2-year-old daughter died tragically in our swimming pool many years ago. And more recently, my husband died after a long illness. Those experiences, along with others, changed the way that I understand loss, faith, healing, and what it means to accompany someone through sorrow. Along the way, I began to notice something that happens in conversations about grief. Often people are so kind. They want to help. They want to comfort. But sometimes the conversation quietly shifts away from the grief itself. Someone tries to make sense of it too quickly, offer an explanation, a silver lining, label it as a blessing in disguise. Someone tries to bring hope before the sorrow has even been allowed to breathe. And what can get lost in those moments is the simple, sacred act of being heard. And over time, I began to realize that truly some of the most healing moments of my own grief journey came when someone simply stayed. They stayed present. They stayed curious. They stayed willing to hear the truth of what grief actually feels like. Not the tidy version, the real one. The grief between us. And that's where this podcast was born. Each episode will be a conversation with someone who has lived through loss. And together we'll talk about the realities of grief, the emotions, the questions, the unexpected turns that loss brings into our lives. You're going to hear stories of heartbreak. You're also going to hear stories of resilience, moments of doubt, alongside moments of meaning. And sometimes you'll hear things that don't resolve neatly, because grief rarely does. But my hope is that as you listen, you will feel something important. You will feel accompanied, that you are not alone in what you carry, and that there is room here for the full truth of your experience, whatever that may be. This is simply a place where we will sit together for a while and speak about grief with honesty, with compassion, and hearts that remain open. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today on The Grief Between Us. If this episode and the things we talked about resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you shared the podcast with someone else who you think might enjoy listening to it. The more these conversations are shared, the more we can help create spaces where grief is understood rather than avoided. Until next time, take gentle care of your heart.